From Central Texas, it's the Best of the Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Von Warnke, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to have an awesome interview today with GARQUEST Bowfishing Adventures owner, Marty McIntyre. And this is an interview that I recorded back in 2013 for a episode of the Hunting Channel Online's Interview with the Masters series. And I've basically edited this interview for this podcast, and I'm kind of getting it out there in social media because it's a great interview. Marty talks about bow fishing for beginning and advanced bow fishers. And Marty and I go back a few years. I built his website, or rebuilt his website a couple of years ago, and have been on several bow fishing trips with him in North Texas, South Texas, and Central Texas. And one of my most memorable experiences with Marty was when we went on a bow fishing marathon. We hit 4 different lakes in 24 hours, and we got into so many fish, it wasn't even funny. It was crazy. We had a blast. I had never shot so many longnose gar at one particular time, and we got into a lake and we shot probably 12 longnose gar in the course of less than 2 hours. It was awesome. Marty is a very accomplished bow fisherman. He has been all over the world bow fishing, and he has also been over a lot of the United States bow fishing in all kinds of different lakes, and is just a great guy. And I'm excited about this interview with Marty McIntyre. And thank you so much for listening, whether you're downloading this podcast or if you're streaming it. However you connected with us, please be sure to like our podcast if you like what you hear, and subscribe and leave us a good review if you like what you are listening to. Here's our interview with Marty.
Hello, Marty. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for joining us for this interview. I'm excited about this, and let's start off with just tell us a little bit about what GARQUEST is and what you do.
Well, GARQUEST is a guide service. I take individuals out and introduce them to bow fishing. I do clinics. I also do individuals that have bow before, and my most enjoyment is people that's never bow fished, get them out there and get them introduced to the great sport of bow fishing.
Great. So especially for new bow fishers, that's awesome. That's great. How did you get started in bow fishing?
Well, while in the military, I was a bow hunter, and one of my bosses said, you know what, if you like bow hunting, you'll love bow fishing. And he got me out there on a 14-foot John boat, paddling around and shooting carp for the first time in one of the ponds on Fort Knox, Kentucky. And that was my beginning, my start. I honestly think he just had me out there to paddle him around, but I definitely got hooked.
What year was that?
1984.
Very good. I knew it was 1980-something. That's awesome. And where did you go from there?
Well, shortly after that, I got sent to Fort Riley, Kansas. And while I was at Fort Riley, I did a whole lot of bank shooting. I don't know, some of your listeners may know Milford Lake is a huge lake there at Fort Riley, and I was always shooting the banks, wishing I could get out further. I shot quite a few there on the river and then on the shores of Milford, but then I bought me a 14-foot aluminum Sears game fisher boat that I would tote around in the back of my pickup. I did that for a while. Then I went back to Knox. Once I got back to Knox, I got me a second job to buy me my first boat with a motor, and I got a 14-foot, 4-foot wide. They called it a little hooker, and it was just a plastic boat. It looked a lot like the Pelicans, but it was 14-foot or 12-foot long and 4-foot wide and very buoyant. Had a 9.9 on it, and I fished out of that boat for probably a good 6 or 7 years. That's when I got sent to Texas. When I got here, I found out the bodies of water were way too big for that boat, and so I decided to get me another one. I bought me a Lumacraft 1548 with a 25 Honda on it. Well, that didn't last very long. It still wasn't big enough. So that's when I bought my 1872 Alumacraft. The last year they made the flat nose, and I fixed that one up, and I fished out of that for about 12 years. And that's got me to the boat I'm in now, which is a inboard jet, lights on it, 21-foot boat. And I thought the inboard jet would be good for Texas, but I'm finding out I'm not real. It stopped me a few times. I'm not real impressed with it.
But it's good for, I mean, you got an inboard motor for the shallow water, correct?
Correct, and it will run shallow. It'll run shallow 2 inches of water for a good 100 yards. But the problem is the leaves, like in fall, that's when I have to watch it. Or when the Trinity River, I'm on the Trinity River, and it's got a lot of debris floating on it, I got to make sure the debris doesn't get caught in the intake. And that's the biggest issue with it, is stuff getting caught in the intake.
Because that can mess up any inboard motor, especially, you know, especially
True.
that one. Okay. I learned that
True.
when I first started playing with jet skis, so yeah.
Yeah, it's the same as a jet ski to a point. It's an inboard tunnel jet, so it's got a little bit more. It's got water in it, but what happens is something will get stuck on the screen, and once it gets stuck on the intake grate, it puts too much bubble in the intake, and then it won't get on plane. It'll bring you off plane, and then it won't get back on plane as long as that stuff's on there.
And you're thinking about moving. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Water a couple. I have had to get into the water a couple times.
You're thinking about going back to an outboard motor with your next rig, right?
Correct. I'm looking at an outboard jet or an outboard motor. The thing with an outboard jet, you can always tilt it up and clean off the grate, and you can still run shallow. So that's why I'm looking. But then I'll keep if I do an outboard jet, I'll make sure I have the prop lower unit just in case.
Very good. Another question for you. How long did it take you to get?
I lost you.
Okay. I'm here. Are you okay? Can you hear me?
I'm here, but
all right. Sorry about that. All right. What would you say to our listeners who are just getting started in bow fishing, and how long did it take you to get where you're at today?
Well, I started in 1984. I had a few breaks in there as I went to Afghanistan and Iraq. But just practice shooting a target plus practice shooting trash will make you the best. Because trash is going to be at different levels, and you can see where your shot is. When you're shooting fish, typically, sometimes you can see where your shot went, and other times you can't because of the splash of the water or something else in the way. But if you're shooting trash, the arrow, once all the dust settles, you can see exactly whether you shot high or low or to the left or to the right.
Very good. And when you say trash, what do you mean?
Well, there's always beer cans at the bottom of the lake.
Sure.
Coke cans. Sometimes you'll find other debris floating in the lake. That helps the lake too. You're cleaning it out. Throw it in the back of your boat. Get rid of it when you get back to the boat dock. You know, it helps. Every little piece helps.
The last bow fishing trip I was on with Marty was a company trip for my main career, and I was just laughing because this guy's first shot, he hit a garden hose that was at the bottom of the lake that somebody had just trashed, and it's a pretty good shot. It kind of looked like he brought a snake up, so that's definitely great advice for beginner shooters. And what would you recommend for, give us the basic components of a bow fishing bow, and what would you recommend for folks just getting started?
Well, I shoot the retriever, AMS retriever. Now,
they have a pro retriever as well, right? The pro retriever?
Yes.
Okay.
But getting started, you don't have to get a pro retriever. You can get the one that bolts on. That's a little bit less expensive. I prefer the muzzy tips on my arrows. Fiberglass arrow, by far, they'll take the most abuse. Make sure you're shooting a slide.
which is the AMS safety slide that goes in the arrow to keep from snapbacks and, you know, that kind of stuff.
And yes, and it helps with the arrow flight out of with the retriever also. And the rest, I would probably use the AMS roller tittle rest, I think it's called, the one that's it's enclosed, so you don't have to worry about your arrow falling off the rest.
Very good. And then you know, another product you and I have used are Interlock Bowfishing, Interlock H2O. They have a Pro Point, which is similar to a Muzzy tip, and then the Grapple 3-blade. You want to talk about those real quick?
Yes, the Pro Point is excellent. It's got great holding power, and you only have to turn the tip about 3 times, and the fish will come off. Now, the Grappler, if you're in big soft fish like a grassy or a buffalo, and they're 20 pounds plus, you can get good penetration and good holding power with that one.
Very good. And I should correct myself with the Grapple. We always call them the Grapplers when we're talking, but they have a Grapple 2-blade and a Grapple 3-blade with Interlock broadheads, and H2O Bowfishing, which is their bowfishing line. And then the Pro Point and the Muzzy are both what we call wire. How would you describe those?
They have wire prongs that hold the
wire
fish
prong.
on, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. And I like the Pro Point a little bit better than the Muzzy because it has longer prongs for better holding power, but they both work about the same way. And those are great points. But the Grapple 3-blade, the thing that really drew me to that, and that I got Marty interested in them, is because they have such great holding power. And I'm a fan of the 3-blade versus the 2-blade just for that reason, especially even if you're dealing with big alligator gar and so on and so forth, big trophy fish like that. But that's just something I wanted to mention as well. And another question, if people are just getting started with a boat, what would you recommend just for a basic bow fishing boat, like a redneck rig, if you will?
At least 42-inch bottom, and then 12, 14 inch. In fact, I just bought what I call a drop-in boat. It's 14 by 48. And it should, with no issues, fish 3 people easily, and I'll be able to drop it in over the bank anywhere is what my plan is. Usually where we can't get access, for instance, the Brazos River, there's not a whole lot of access points there. You can drop it in, and if you get on a sandbar, if there's any water whatsoever, 1 to 2 individuals will be able to pull it over a sandbar, where my 21-footer, you're not pulling it over a sandbar.
That's a little too big. Right. I understand that. And then another way that Marty fishes, then there's several videos that he's done and edited them himself. You can see those on our website at macandprowler.com. That's MACANDPROWLER.com in our Gar Tail section, but also on Marty's website and on the Hunting Channel online. I've got several of them uploaded on our Mac and Prowler channel. But tell us about your river fishing and what boat you use for just a trolling motor and a little 2-person bass boat style.
Right. Well, I started out with that bass, the Pelican pond hopper, I think they call it, and it was a little heavy for me. So now I'm in the canoe. Now that pond hopper was 11 foot long and 4 foot wide, which made it very stable. 2 full-grown men, and I'm 208, and the guy that went with me was 250, and we had no issues fishing out of it, just with a trolling motor. If you have 2 people, you can carry it to the water. But I fish by myself a lot, and I found out this canoe, the Pelican canoe, flatback canoe, is a lot better for me fishing by myself, me and the dog, because it's stable. It's 42 inches wide on the bottom at the fattest point. It has a flat back, so the trolling motor sits on there. I've got a 50-pound thrust Minn Kota trolling motor, and that trolling motor will cause a wake behind it. it pushes that canoe so well. So you can get up and down the river, fast compared to paddling, and it's quiet enough that you can get right on the fish. And I enjoy taking longer shots just to see if I can hit them. And that canoe gets me in some spots that even this flat bottom 1448 is not going to get me.
That's great. And what does a rig like that cost you? That's pretty low cost compared to buying a full-on boat, right?
Oh yeah, if you get on Craigslist, you can get that. Well, in fact, that canoe I think cost me $200, and the trolling motor cost me $100. The battery in the battery box was more than or half the cost of everything else, because I bought a brand new Minn Kota battery box with the little socket so you can plug in a cigarette lighter, which what I do is plug in lights to it, and then the battery's, $100 bill almost. So
that's great. So that's really a good way for people to get started without having to go out and buy a full-on outboard bass boat if they just want to do that. Another way is just bank fishing. Talk about that real quick.
Yeah, bank fishing, you have to be careful in Texas. There is a lot of places that you cannot bank fish in Texas. Colorado River Authority will not allow bank fishing, period. So if you're trying to do any of the Highland Lakes, you better check the regulations. But and access to the bank is a hard part in Texas, because most location is private land. Now, if you can get access through private land, then you're fine. You just find a little high spot and wait. You end up waiting on the fish. So it's more like hunting a deer or something. You wait for the fish to come by, and that's the way. In Kansas, where I started, there was an oxbow that I used to fish all the time, and I'd sit up on the high bank of that oxbow, which put me about 6 foot over the water, and I could see out quite a ways, and the fish would just swim back and forth. I mean, it was quite productive.
Great. That's awesome. And, I mean, I've gone bank fishing before on my own and just teaching other people the basics of bow fishing. And, you can kind of spot and stalk along the bank, too, instead of just still hunting, still fishing it. And, another option is just to, do what you were doing with still fishing in a situation like tilapia, especially, is a fish that's very curious, and they come up to and like to see what you're doing and what's going on. But the minute that you move, those things are gone. They're like the ghost fish, as I call it. So
correct, yeah. Tilapia is the best fish to stalk, because you're in water less than the depth of your knees.
You're kind of wade fishing at that point.
As long as you don't step in their beds, you can move along. In fact, I've went tilapia fishing and not even taking a boat, just jumped in a car and drove over there and get off in the water and go after them. And I typically wear long pants so the duckweed and the lily pads don't start scratching on your legs. I'll wear something with that dries super quick and stalk them that way, carry a stringer, and just shoot them and put them on the stringer and keep on moving slowly.
Very good, because any kind of movement, sudden movement, those fish can see it. That's a very, very smart fish. And tilapia are, known as an invasive species in the U.S. Typically, you'll find them in the southern U.S., but just to give folks an idea, in Texas especially, you find them in certain lakes and streams they've just been in for a while, like Lake Dunlap and some of the Guadalupe Valley area lakes in kind of south central Texas, like in New Braunfels, where I grew up. But in other parts of the nation, especially here in Texas, you find them on power plant lakes because they have warm water year round.
Yeah, right. When I first started fishing tilapia, I looked them up, trying to research them a little bit, and the only thing I could find is they don't get bigger than 2 pounds, which is incorrect. As you see, the the state record here is like 9 or 10 pounds. They won't live in water that gets colder than a certain degrees, which The Guadalupe River, as you mentioned, is cold all year round.
Yes.
Because it comes out of the bottom of the lake. So,
Springfield,
and they're all the way up and down the Guadalupe. But the thing is, and this is what I found out about tilapia, as long as the temperature changes gradually, they survive. If the temperature changes quickly, then they'll die, just like the kill-off on Trading House. They shut down the power plant in the middle of the wintertime. It killed them all because we had an extremely cold winter, and they were all trying to get up into intake, and when they shut it down, the water temperature changed too drastically.
Right. And that, that's definitely a good place, to look for is your power plant lakes that still have tilapia, and you can certainly call your authority and or your even local DNR or Fish and Game Department and find out what lakes have tilapia, because they typically the way they got in Lake Dunlap, from what I understand, is they were used as trot line bait years ago and just got off and just started spreading around. What are some other bow fishing targets? What kind of fish do you typically target when you're bow fishing aside from tilapia, which we just talked about?
Of course, the trophy fish, the alligator gar. And then you have needle-nose, spotted, and short-nose gar, which you can find in most lakes in the state of Texas.
And nationwide, too. I mean, quite a bit nationwide. We're talking to a pretty big audience here. So.
Right. Then you have buffalo, you have smallmouth buffalo and bigmouth buffalo. You have carp, common carp, grass carp, sucker. That's mainly. And then, of course, north of here, you got Asian carp, which is the silvers and the big heads, which are amazing to chase down. I've only been once, but it was a good time.
It's a blast. Aerial carp shooting, that's what bow fishing is well known for when you watch it on TV, is the kind of extreme bow fishing adventures like that. But we don't do so much of that down here in Texas. There are some lakes like up in North Texas, though, that are starting to get those, right?
Yeah, well, the river system, they've shot several out of the river system up North Texas, yes.
Okay, that's good.
Northeast, I should say.
And Marty is actually a world record holder as well. Why don't you tell us about that and how that went down? Because we just celebrated, the second anniversary of that?
Yes, it's been 2 years.
Yep.
I shot the world record bigmouth buffalo. We pulled it out of the water. It was 90 pounds. By the time we got it weighed, it was 81.5 pounds, and that was 3 days later. So it lost some weight, but I kept it up until then, and we got it on the scales as soon as the weekend was over with. It was on July 4th, and as soon as the weekend was over with, we got it weighed in, and I'm still holding the record right now.
That's awesome. Tell us real quick how that whole thing went down. How did you shoot this trophy buffalo?
Well, we were having a pretty slow night. It was me and my 2 sons and one of their friends, and we were at Toledo Bend, and we had been fishing Toledo Bend for 3 days on that July 4th weekend.
That's East Texas, right, Marty?
Yes, East Texas. And we went through, and we're having real slow. I think we had 3 fish in the boat, and we were just about getting bored. It was right after midnight, and it was kind of like, we're not seeing anything less. The water was super warm. I mean, extremely warm. And we were talking, let's fish just a little bit further, and then we'll call it. And then this sucker comes out of the hydrilla, and it came out of the hydrilla, and we seen the hydrilla moving before it even broke the hydrilla, and it just came out. And I didn't give anybody a chance to shoot or anything. I was like, oh my gosh, and I just nailed him. And luckily, I hit him in the head because he was coming right at the boat, and I put him down when I hit him in the head. I don't think we would have got him in the boat if I wouldn't have gotten a good hit on him, as big as it was.
And then what happened next?
We brought it in and took it for weigh-in.
That's great. That's awesome. That's a great story. And, just general bow fishing, if you are in a bass-style boat, a 16-footer, a 14-footer, and you're kind of trolling the lakes, you're mainly, when you're bow fishing, a lot of folks have always asked me, okay, how does a basic bow fishing trip go? And I always kind of refer them to GARQUEST.com because there's several videos, and even Marty wearing the GoPro camera of him actually, in the shooting mode and around customers and around friends of his to actually see, bird's eye or really, point of view of what a bow fishing, trip looks like. But where's your main tactics on where you like to fish, and then how do you typically, work a lake?
Well, it depends on every lake, but I look at if I'm going to a new lake, I'll look at the map and I'll see where the flats are, and I'll go there and start looking for the fish there. But if it's like the lakes I know already, I know pretty much Steelhouse and Belton where to go and where to start looking, and it depends on every time, every season is different where the fish are and where the big fish are hanging out, where the most fish are hanging out, or where maybe even where the gar are hanging out. And I just go, gar love the mouths of creeks, or rivers coming into a lake, or even up into the river a little ways. And then buffalo, we're looking at sand or cliff banks, something with a little bit of gravel. They like that. They like to suck that stuff in their mouth and spit it back out. And then carp, if you're looking for carp, the muddy flats. Carp are typically in a muddy flat. If you can find hydrilla, you can find all of them in the hydrilla areas of the lake.
Very good. And so mainly the basic process is, fire up the outboard or inboard or your main motor to get to a start spot of a cove or side of the bank, and just start kind of trolling around the edges, right?
Right. And it all depends. It depends on the wind. If I'm doing a guided trip, I will go out as far away as I think it'll take me 4 hours or so to get back to, and we'll start fishing back to the boat ramp or towards the boat ramp anyways. Sometimes, depending on the wind, I'll start at the boat ramp and fish away from it. It just depends. There's a whole lot of different tactics that you can use getting in there, but you have to be on the lake a little bit to really find the fish. I've went on lakes that are totally strange to me and found the fish right away, and then other lakes, I can't seem to find them anywhere.
And Marty's basic equipment for bow fishing, you can see at GARQUEST.com, which is he has a really nice Dodge Megacab truck that he pulls his big boat with. And tell us a little bit about your platform, your shooting platform that you built. You don't have to have a shooting platform, I know, but the platform that you have and the lights that you use, because I know that's a lot of people are looking to out-rig. I get a lot of questions about that. How do I rig up lights? What kind of lights should I use, sodium or, LEDs? Or give us some recommendations on that.
Yeah, if you want to keep it low cost, use halogens. And everybody says, well, not halogens, but we used halogens for years and years and years, and we did fine.
Right.
But now they've got the LEDs out. We're running HPSs or HIPs.
Which stands for what?
Or HPs, huh?
Which stands for what? What does HP
high
stand
pressure
for?
sodium. Or,
and those are the same.
Huh?
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Those are the same style of lights that they use like on crab fishing boats, just to give a point of reference.
Okay. I wouldn't know that.
You're the one that told me that. I think a while back. Maybe you forgot. Never mind.
But I use high pressure sodium because they put out a yellow light, and halogens I used for years and years and years because you can go to the first Walmart and pick up a light bulb if it blows, or you can carry them on the boat. They're, you know, a couple of dollars a piece. And they hold up. They hold up well. They give you a white light. They draw bugs. And the problem with the white lights, we're finding out as a research and as people use them more, the murkier the water, the less the white lights cut the water. The yellow light tends to cut them quite a bit better, and even if you don't see the fish, you'll see some kind of movement in the water, which is why I've stuck with the high-pressure sodiums.
Very good. And that's one thing you want to also look for in bow fishing is, you know, the clearer the water, the more you're going to see, you know, the better visibility. And talk real quick about refraction.
Well, yeah, every body of water has refraction, and the clearer it is, the more refraction you're going to get. So if you're seeing 6 foot deep, that fish is going to look like it's 3 foot deep, but it's actually going to be closer to 5 or 6 foot. If it looks like it's, you know, less than 2 foot, then it's probably further down 3 foot or so. And that's what you have to adjust for. But every body of water, every clarity of water, and the distance and the depth of the fish all come into that equation when you're trying to figure out the fish. So you'll have to shoot a couple times to get your depth down and figure it out. But you always aim under the fish, and like one of the sayings we have is aim low. When you think you're low enough, aim lower.
Yeah,
aim low,
aim low.
think big.
Aim low, think big. That's one I got from another bow fishing guide service I watched a video for one time, and I thought that was just a cool thing to just teach people, you know, to just rehearse that in your head. Another thing you don't use a lot, which you can use, are sights on your bow, correct?
A lot of people, I don't ever use them, but there's several people that are coming up. They put one pin, set that pin up for, I don't know, the normal 12, 14 foot, and then they have a reference point. And that's the thing. They want some people, because they're shooting bows with sights on them all the time, they're looking for a reference point.
Right. And that's just something, it's just kind of a comfort thing if you are into bow hunting and are used to using a sight. It was hard for me, and Marty says a lot of times, you know, his easiest, guide clients that he gets in are non-bow hunters and they're the easiest ones to train because they don't have a frame of reference of shooting a bow. They don't understand what an anchor point and, you know, release and so on and so forth are yet, but they don't know any better as to just shoot instinctively. And that's pretty much what you're doing when you're bow fishing without a sight, is you're just aiming down that arrow and aiming low, and you're just shooting instinctively, correct?
Correct. And they're not, you can show them their anchor point, get them set up on an anchor point, and just convince them to pull back to that same spot, where when you're shooting a release, your anchor point is different than if you're shooting fingers. So now they have to figure out, okay, I'm used to pulling back here, but now I have to pull back here. They're always looking for sights. When you're bow hunting, you teach yourself to focus on your target and focus in on it hard, find you a spot and aim there. Well, with bow fishing, you find yourself a spot, but then you have to drop and let go, drop and release.
And sometimes pretty quick, too. You know,
yeah.
Sometimes that fish is there and it's gone, especially if you're moving at a pretty good little clip when you're trolling. You know, or when you're even still fishing for tilapia on the front of a boat, you know, that fish is there and gone 1 second. So you got to be able to do all those things fast. So it just takes practice, just like anything else. And that's one thing Marty's taught me is the way you get better is just to practice more. And talk real quick about the different types of bows that you can use too. I know we're kind of going in a lot of different directions, but I think this is all good material to share with the listeners.
Well, if you're just starting out and want to get into bow fishing, you can use an old bow that you already have, or you can go to the pawn shop and get a bow. Or, you know, a lot of guys, this is a bow my dad was shooting. He gave it to me. It's perfect for that. The lighter the bow, the better, as far as weight-wise for the whole bow. The poundage doesn't need to be any more than 50 pounds. If it's a 60-pound bow, you can drop it down. I prefer the Alpine bows, the Alpine Mako. It is made for bow fishing. It's put together for bow fishing. And the main reason I like it is I've shot the other ones that are made for bow fishing, and that's if you're going to buy a kit, but it tends to throw an arrow pretty stout. I've actually have 2 kids Alpine hunting bows that I've converted into bow fishing bows that are really good for my young guys, girls, and women. The poundage is not too high. It's set about 30, 35. It'll go up to 40, and it flings an arrow very, very well. It'll penetrate the big fish. Now, that's if you're going to buy a kit or buy a bow starting out. I shoot a lever bow. American Eagle bow is what I'm holding my breath on, waiting for it to come in. It is supposed to be the top of the line of the lever bows now. I have not heard nothing negative about it, and I can't wait to shoot it. I have been shooting for the last probably 7 or 8 years Oneidas, and what I do with the Oneidas, I'll buy an old Oneida at a pawn shop, and I'll send it off to Joe at American Eagle Bows, and he rebuilds it completely and puts his new parts on it, and it shoots just like a brand new bow, but it's heavier than the bows he builds. So that's why he's got this bow coming out, and I am stoked, holding my breath, waiting for it. Mine is supposed to be at the painters right now, so waiting for it to get here.
And another idea is, you can certainly use a recurve, a compound, a lever bow, and a lever bow. It just to explain to folks, it looks kind of like a recurve with a compound built inside of it. Is that the best explanation? I don't know how to best explain that.
That's probably the best way. People don't realize they're not recurves until they get close to them.
Yeah. I used to think they were uglier than a 5 miles of mud fence before I shot one, and I realized there's so little let off. And if you're into bow hunting, typical compound bows got about 65% or so let off when you get back there to hold that. A lever bow has got the power of a compound bow, but it's got very little let off, and that's the reason why.
That depends on the lever bow that you're shooting, because some lever bows you have 50, 75%, 80% let off. Yeah, but the one I got is got very little let off is correct.
Yeah, and that's I just started shooting that, and Marty gave me one a while back, and it's a 1980 something Screaming Eagle, and I'm in love with lever bows. And I used to think mine was just when I first started seeing Marty using these, I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand what's so awesome about that versus a compound bow. All I've ever known is a compound or a recurve. And I started shooting, and I started realizing, wow, this is a smooth drawing, fast shooting. It's just quick to get on target, and I've never looked back. And what I did on mine that Marty gave me was even refinished it in truck bed liner, just taped off all the cams and the cables and everything, and just took some spray truck bed liner, just kind of a redneck paint job, if you will, and did that. And you can also do that if you go to a pawn shop, and that's one place Marty and I always like to go in and find what $50 bows. Explain that whole process.
Well, I try to get them for $100 or less, and it depends on the bow, of course. And I've got about 7 different pawn shops I keep my eye on. I used to have a lady that worked at the pawn shop, one of the main pawn shops here, and she'd gather up a whole bunch, and as soon as bow season was over, she'd call me, and I'd go pick them all up. Yeah. And she'd give me a cherry deal on them all. So,
and if I hadn't gone through Marty to get my bow, I would have done the same thing. I would have gone and just bought a cheap, older, because you don't need anything really fancy. You want to certainly look and make sure the string's not frayed, because a good string replacement's going to be, $50 to $100. And you want to just make sure that it's quality. The limbs aren't warped or bent or have any splits or cracks. You want to make sure it's a safe bow, but you don't need a new, brand new top-of-the-line bow to do bow fishing with. And that's the one thing for people that don't have a huge budget to get started, that want to just start bank fishing, or just start in a small, Pelican style canoe or two-man bass boat, you can get started bow fishing for reasonable, with not spending a lot of money. You just go buy one of the AMS retriever kits for it. And what do those run?
Yeah, I think they're running about a 159 now. AMS the kit comes with everything though.
Yes.
It comes with the reel, the rest, and 2 arrows, and that's a big bonus right there when you come with 2 arrows. Because when I was starting out back in Kansas shooting from the bank, I went and spent my last $15 on an arrow and lost it the first or second shot.
Which can happen.
So, yeah.
Indeed.
So, and I've done it recently, but now I've got so many arrows that it's not an issue. But when you're starting out, that can be a real issue because you got set up. Something went wrong, and you snapped it, or you got it hung in the tree or something in the water, especially if you're bank shooting, because oxbows, bank oxbows, or rivers are usually full of trees and stuff, and you may get it hung up, and from that angle of the bank, you're not going to get it loose, and it could come, break the line, break the slider, something on there, and you're
always good to have a backup. Always good to have a backup.
Yes.
And, so that whole complete kit's offered through AMS, and that's a great idea. And actually, I edited a video for Marty that Marty did himself in his own little GARQUEST studios that is on his website. If you want to learn how to set up a bow, whether it's a new bow or a bow, you bought used from a pawn shop and want to do a truck bed liner job like I did on mine or whatever. But Marty walks you through the whole process of how to do that on his website at GARQUEST.com. I've actually put that video on the front page. And then there's an interview of me, Dustin Warnke, and Marty McIntyre doing a whole interview about his big record fish to his world record buffalo as well that you can see on there as well. What advice would you give to folks that want to be a better bow fisherman in the next 30 days, 90 days, even a year? What would you suggest?
Practice. And the best thing, you can shoot in a target on dry land, just loosen your barbs before you shoot. But the best thing is shooting into the water. You can use a jug, sink a jug. They actually make 3D targets, buffalo and a carp 3D target.
And a gar too, right?
Well, buffalo and a gar. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
And I would suggest the gar because the buffalo is huge. And it takes everything you have to sink it.
You use weights for your gar, don't you? Like it weights?
Yes, I do. 2 35-pound weights.
Like dumbbells, like barbells, right?
Sink it, yes.
Yeah. And Marty and I have done a bunch of events. He's done more than I have, but I was being pro staff with him. We recently did an event this past spring at our local Cabela's here in Buda, Texas, between San Antonio and Austin. And actually, he gets the kids and the adults and whoever wants to give it a try to come out underneath the awning of the big Cabela's area there, pulls up his boat. They climb up on top of the boat platform of his awesome shooting platform on his boat and take a shot at a kind of a kiddie pool that has the gar targets sunk in it. And it was so much fun. Tell us something about that.
Yeah, that's, Cabela's. I do Cabela's. I do Becoming an Outdoor Woman by Parks and Wildlife, Outdoor Woman, Wild Turkey Foundation. Cabela's, I've also done NASPA, National Archery in Schools Program, and that's the best ones. Cabela's, you get the kids coming up and trying it, and, once they're introduced to shooting, they're sold. And that's the thing about anybody that is an archer that wants to get their kids into archery. Bow fishing is an excellent start because they get out there, they find out they can hit a fish. So then the next step is maybe pigs or maybe deer or, depending on their age. But they find out they can hit a fish. Well, shoot, if I can hit a fish, I can take other animals with a bow and arrow.
It builds that confidence. It really does.
Correct. Yes. In fact, I've got gentleman that I go to Legacy. He brought his granddaughter. She's been shooting target. Well, she wanted to go bow fishing. She didn't hit anything. She got very close to a lot of fish, but that was her highlight of her whole vacation with her grandpa. And she went white striper fishing, and she went catfishing, and she went pond fishing. She had done all this, but that was still her highlight, even though she did not connect with anything and get it in the boat.
That's great. That's awesome. And that's one thing I'm always about getting, and most of us in the outdoor world are all about getting youth involved in the shooting sports or archery or shooting or anything like that. And bow fishing is great.
That's our future.
Yeah, it is. And, I mean, that's going to be the future of bow fishing and hunting and fishing and any kind of outdoor activity that we enjoy as sportsmen. And that's huge. So, yeah, that is paramount. I love that story. Thanks for telling that. Another product I wanted to plug while we were talking here is a bow fishing light. And if you fish with fewer lights on your boat, like Marty has 4 HPS or high pressure sodium lights on each side of his boat, it's more than enough light for just about any kind of bow fishing adventure I've been on with him at night. You can obviously do day bow fishing and so on and so forth, but if you are bow fishing with just a couple of lights on your boat, a really good product I wanted to suggest is the VRLX, which is by varmintlights.com. They have a bow fishing adapter. I have a video on their website as well for that product. And it's a nice, small flashlight that has a screw-in to your stabilizer. You can even screw in right to a bow mount that Marty and I have both tried and both love. It's kind of sandwiched in between your reel if you're using an AMS system, or you can just screw it right into your stabilizer. But I prefer the bow fishing mount on it just because it's pivotable and you can move the light up or down and so on and so forth. So varmintlights.com for the VRLX. Flashlight that is new on the market as of the recording of this interview. So I wanted to plug that as well. What else would you like to say? What other words of wisdom would you like to give to our listeners?
Just get out there and practice. Get into bow fishing. It is exciting. It is very addictive, though. I don't know how many people I have taken out, and within 2 weeks they're buying their own boat. And they're trying to get, they're buying a bow, and they're buying a boat. And if I have a doctor friend now that I had been trying to get him to go bow fishing forever. And he finally went, brought his 10-year-old boy, and I think his son was probably 7 when I started trying to get him to come, because he started hunting when he was about 7. And I said, man, you need to bring him bow fishing. You need to bring him bow fishing. Well, he finally did. Now he's in search of a bow fishing boat. And,
going out and doing it on his own. Yeah.
Yep, he's ready. Well, and that's the problem. They want to go, but I'm booked, so I can't take them. So, he's gonna get his own boat, and he's gonna be out there with his son. Now, that's perfect. Son and daughter, it's perfect time to get with your kids and talk to them. And I take my grandbaby. She's not shooting yet. She's 7. She's just starting to shoot targets, but she loves to be on the boat. I have a trip. She'll ask me, "Can I go?" And I'll depending on who's going out with me. Every now and then she'll go with me, and she'll hang out on the boat with us and watch us shoot. And if you watch my videos, you'll hear her in the background hollering and talking and pointing out fish. And every now and then she's in the picture. But it's a great time out on the water with your kids.
Oh, it is. And also with your pets, talk about Ivy the guard dog.
Oh, yeah. Ivy got on the boat. First time she got on the boat, she didn't know whether she liked it or not, but she caught on real quick. Now, if you're shooting, she's on it. As soon as the fish comes on the boat, she's got it, and she's holding it down for you.
She'll hold on to it. I've never seen a dog like that around fish, and, Ivy's an incredible dog. What kind of dog is she again?
She's a black-mouthed cur.
Black-mouthed cur, so a good hog dog, hunting dog, or just general all-around dog. But Ivy is exceptionally well-behaved, and out of all the comments we get on our videos of GARQUEST, that's the one everybody is commenting on how good of a dog that is, and it's hard to find them like her. But if you want to see some of Ivy in action, you can certainly check out the website. And
I've got that one. I've got a bunch of fishing, but I've got the one hog video on there also.
Yeah, that's right. So, I've heard actually going on a hog hunt. So that's great. And so tell us more about where folks can find you. And I'll go ahead and say real quick, too, another, idea for those of you that would like to get into bow fishing or just, don't really have the equipment or anything else or just want to learn to see if it's a fit for you, is to hire a guide like Marty McIntyre with GARQUEST. If you don't live in Texas or can't make it down to Texas to where we're at, certainly find a bow fishing guide. There probably is one if you have a lake or a river near you that you can contract out for a night and hire for a group of take a few guys and isn't that a great idea first to just kind of get the feel of it?
Yeah, and if you look at it, it's actually cheaper to hire somebody like me and go out once a month or go out once every 3 or 4 months until you get into it than it is to go out and get all the gear if you buy everything new. By the time you pay the gas and buy the bow and get to the lake, then you're, it's a whole lot. It's less. What's the word I'm looking for, Dustin? It's a whole lot easier and stress-free. There we go.
Yeah,
that's what
less stressful. Yeah, okay.
I know where the fish are. I will take you to the fish. All you have to do is show up with a fishing license. I supply all the bows, the equipment. You don't have to worry about wear and tear on your equipment. You just come on and have a good time.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I've sponsored a couple of trips for friends of mine that I've taken bow fishing with Marty, and also my main career day job, as I call it. I've taken groups on 2 annual bow fishing trips. We just finished one last month, and it's just a blast. If you've got a corporate outing or anything like that and need a big boat, I mean, with somebody like Marty to call and do that so you don't have to rely on all your own equipment, it's certainly a phenomenal idea. So give us your contact info, Marty.
It is GARQUEST at AOL.com or GARQUEST.com. You can get all my information, phone number, the whole works. Or you can go on, if you're a Facebooker, you can go on GARQUEST Bowfishing on Facebook and like my GARQUEST page, and I keep that page is kept up daily. Whenever we go out on a trip, I usually come back and load up the pictures on it. So there's hundreds of pictures of bow fishing trips on there. And if you've never bow fished, never bow hunted, never pulled a bow back, that's not a worry, because I will give you a block of instructions, and then we'll start getting on the fish.
Great. So GARQUEST.com, and then you can certainly see some of Marty's videos, a selection of them. You can certainly see all of them at GARQUEST.com under the Customer Catches link, and then you can also see quite a few of Marty's videos I put on the Hunting Channel Online website under our Mac and Prowler video page, and I have all of Marty's videos on GARQUEST.com as well as the ones that I put on MacandProwler.com, which is www.macandprowler, just for our listeners that are interested in that. So thank you so much again for this interview with the masters here. And Marty is a true master of bow fishing and is one of the most knowledgeable people that I've ever run into on the sport, and just does this stuff all the time. He eats, sleeps, and drinks it. And is there any words you'd like to say?
No, it's been fun, Dustin. I appreciate it, and happy bow fishing.
Man, I enjoyed that interview. That was just an awesome experience with Marty. He is a great guy to talk to on the phone. He's very accessible and easy to talk to. If you have any questions for him, he's always happy to answer them, and you can contact him through his website at garquest.com. That's GARQUEST.com. Or you can contact me with questions through my website at dustinsprojects.com. I'll be happy to answer them, answer you directly, or answer them as part of our show. And I just want to thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, again, please subscribe to our podcast, and you'll be notified of new episodes that come out. And you will also have the opportunity on my website to register for our newsletter, and I'll just keep you up to date on what we're doing there. Either way, thank you so much for tuning in and downloading or streaming this podcast, and have an awesome day in the outdoors.